Uh,
Oh,
just a quick introduction. Thanks, Antonio,
take your time. Yeah.
for coming to us. As I was with Erwan starting to put together the schedule and everything, Antonio had just published an essay in organizational aesthetics. And the title spoke to me quite vividly. It's called "Do You Play with Philosophy?" In which, well, I'll let him develop, but he advanced a few arguments and points that were quite challenging for people who are trying to play with philosophy, but also inspiring. So it was not just either, mocking people who pretend to do philosophy or praising other people who do philosophy, but offering a mode of engagement that I found to be, as often with Antonio, refreshing and challenging. And when I reached out, Antonio right away was kind enough to say that he would be happy to do it as long as we took into consideration the time difference, so it wouldn't be too early. So that was an easy constraint to follow. In the idea of a conversation, we have an hour and a half this morning, so we have time, which is just like I said yesterday with Jean-François Chanlat, is the idea that we have time also to hear all the thinking and the arguments and the reasoning before we engage in the conversation. That's all the point of having an hour and a half. We're not rushed. Antonio has all the time in the world to share with us his ideas, and then we can debate and engage, confront and disagree happily and playfully. Without further ado, Antonio, the floor is yours. Do you play with philosophy?
Thank you, Johan, and thanks for the invitation. And I saw the other colleagues in your plenaries, in your conference, and I am very honored to be together with Jean-François Chanlat, Romain Lefer, and the other two that I don't know them. I am less familiar with their work in the last day. So congratulations for your conference, and also thanks a lot for this invitation. I accepted because it was freshly made. I mean, it was said, well, why don't you come to say something in our conference? And I want to take this form that you announced, the conversational form, during my speech. I prepared. Let me ask you if you can hear me and if you can understand my international English. It's okay? Everything works?
Perfect.
Oh, wonderful. So I prepared a PowerPoint, or a PowerPoint, as you say in France, in order to facilitate our discussion, our conversation, and just to focus on a few ideas that are behind and also exposed in the article. The article that I wrote, which has the title, "Do You Play with Philosophy?" is an article that came out in this, originated from this interrogative. Are we really sure that philosophy is important for the aesthetic understanding of organizational life? I take the aesthetic understanding of organizational life in order to be modest and to circumscribe and to limit, to bound the discourse, otherwise it may sound grandiose. It is not. I'm not interrogating about, if all the scholars in the world study organization studies. I'm not implying all these. If it is important for all of them to study, to have a philosophy, is important philosophy for their studies. I am trying to reflect on something that is very much more my field of studies, that is the aesthetic understanding of organizational life. I will give you some clues in a moment. But this aesthetic understanding of organizational life is immersed grounded in a sense in all the other studies. And I notice that there is a growing number of publications, and here you can see in the slide some of them, a few of them that I wanted to quote. Two of them I contributed with a chapter, so I am involved in this process. There's a growing number of publication signals, according to my understanding, that a new intellectual trend is influencing and transforming the research and the study in organizational life. This is a new intellectual trend, and I had taken this very seriously because it changed somehow. I don't know how, but I have the feeling, I feel that it changed the way we are looking at the contribution that philosophy always gave to the theories in organizational studies. Wherever we find a theory, an organizational theory, there are some philosopher, some other philosophy behind. We can notice this. But this is something different. It looks like a movement going towards a kind of increased interest in philosophical background, philosophical roots, philosophical grounding assertion, philosophical study. So I'm going quite fast, but then we can go back to all of these. Let me just introduce you to what I mean when I speak about aesthetic understanding of organizational life. The aesthetic understanding of organizational life is a part of the organizational aesthetics research. We see if you have an interest. I will tell you more about all this. It has been a field of study that I pioneered from it's 30 years that I insist that we can take an aesthetic view, an aesthetic lens while we are studying organizational life. But what I mean with this, I mean something like that you can see there, something that is very ordinary, very frequent, is very mundane, very banal, if you like. I had to introduce with a preface, a foreword, the sociology in a new key essay in social theory and aesthetics that Helmut Staubmann just published. And Helmut Staumann goes through Zimmel and the few others sociologists who took an aesthetic view in their sociological theory. And his book is, if you like, the grand theories about aesthetics. My way to see aesthetics and aesthetics in organizational life, and in this follow-up, I am writing this, comes from just the banal, ordinary, everyday life. And I was writing in order to keep all the grand theories down in the earth, in the mundane life. An episode that is a banal episode that happened to me. I mean, and this is, what shall we take? My wife asks me, thus interrupting our chat with the lady who runs the fish shop. This fish shop is an ordinary fish shop linked to a supermarket in Liguria, so it's the Riviera. And we are used to go there. Whatever you prefer, I replay, as usually I do with my wife. Sardines or anchovies, both are beautiful. Both are beautiful. Now, the expression beautiful is employed very much in Italian to say something. This is a beautiful relationship. This is a beautiful, this was ugly, this was, etc., etc. In other languages, probably I had said both are great, but great doesn't sound correct in Italian, because great means enormous. they are not great. They are small fish, so they are beautiful in Italian. But I mean, the use of the language is also implicated in the aesthetics of everyday life. The saleswoman, who has known us for years, intervenes, and taking a handful of anchovies in her right hand to let us look at them and smell them more closely, says, "You should take the anchovies. They are more beautiful. Shall I give you half a kilo as usual?" So this is the negotiation, which is based on, is grounded in aesthetics. You could imagine that this is just something, I mean, minimal and very individual, or that doesn't count. But the fish industry is an enormous, important industrial activity. The market of the fish in Paris or in Genova are very important, and food is very important for people. I mean, and the judgment regarding this food is based on an aesthetic judgment. And we make also, if you like, there is a kind of negotiation of what was beautiful, what is the beauty of the sardine or the anchovies are you know, sardines and les anchois. They are very, I mean, popular, poor fish food, and they are very common in Liguria, which is if you like, the continuation of the Côte d'Azur in France, going towards Rome in Italy. In Liguria, they are the fish of the day. For us, is half a kilo 4, 5 times per day. I mean, it's like this. And if they are not the anchovies, they are the sardines. And these are the very popular food. So the judgment is aesthetics. So this is to say also that it's not just art, but art is there. Art is there. I mean, on our way, we have the sight, the smell, what the marketing, the people who do market and on the fish, they have to take in consideration. I mean, we do us as consumers, and they do as selling fish. I mean, the fish doesn't have to smell too much. It has to be vivid, etc., etc. These are aesthetic judgment in their establishing the price also of the fish. And also these aesthetic judgment are, it's not individual, it's a collectively constructed. So this is the aesthetic, but of course there is art inside, because there is the art of the design of the place, the design of the shop, the design of where the fish is showed, is exposed, is the way they are exposed. When you go in a fish shop and you look at this exposition of different fishes, you are like in a museum. You go there to see better. You don't know this type of fish. You know, this is also the taste of people, the culture of how to expose things. And if you like, also the design of all the materials that are there, from the balance, the electronic system to pay, the lighting, all that is shown in a shop, a fish shop. So this is the aesthetics. And what tell us this episode is that aesthetics is with us, with our bodies. We smell, we look with our eyes, we hear in the conversation with the we make a gesture, and we are not just words, we are bodies. There is a corporeality, there is the materiality of the food, the materiality of the bodies, the materiality of the words, and the materiality of the words written in this slide. I don't want to continue because I could go on too long for this. But this is the field of study. So what has philosophy to do? To give to the aesthetic understanding of organizational life. Now we can go back to the new intellectual trend. It is written in this way, the title, this new intellectual trend, because I don't know why, but the PowerPoint made itself this double, because probably I pressed a key that was not the right key to press. This new intellectual trend is giving another form to the previous awareness of organizational scholars about the importance of philosophy and epistemology and social theory in their research and studies. This is the first point that I feel that is another form. I don't have, I didn't go, I mean, I didn't analyze, and I cannot support this feeling with an exhaustive analysis of the writings, why, and to justify and to express more beautifully, if you like, what I'm saying. But I have this impression because I am a part of this process. And in this process, I felt that they are asking me to be to pay attention to philosophy and epistemology and social theory, but I mean philosophy in particular. And I am involved in a way in this process. It's giving a novel form, is configuring at the same time a new fashion in the study of organization through edited volumes, journals, special issues, monographs, and journals, articles. And this is what worries me, because the new fashion in the study of organization means, for those who are still young, like you, Johan, means, if you go back to your doctoral time, that the pressure, no, the pressure on the young researcher now you have in order to publish in organization studies, organization, or human relations, or I don't know what, Scandinavian Journal of Management, or other journals, you have to quote at least 2, 3, 4 philosophers. Otherwise, you don't support enough your research, your study. So a fashion may have this bad side, this dark side in the interest that we have in philosophy and, of course, epistemology and social theory. The other point is that a reference to philosophers and the companions of their thought are increasingly characterizing the style and architecture of writing organization, I say. So the reference to philosopher is, let's say, the first step to deal with philosophy. The compendiums that we find in some of these new edited book of what Derrida said that is useful for organization studies, what Merleau-Ponty said that wrote that is useful for organization studies, what other philosophers, etc. No, there are compendiums of this kind, of all the compendiums that sometimes I find in all the essays that arrive to be reviewed. And compendiums, well, John Dewey wrote these as this compendium do not give too much. No, that they are in a sense just the first step, the first touch with philosophy, and these are the most general. This is the most general situation, the most general way. But they are increasingly present in the writing of organizations. There is a chapter, a paragraph on the pragmatism and Dewey and or Merleau-Ponty and phenomenology, or Derrida and postmodernism, on Donna Haraway and post-humanism, and Braidottian. You find this, but this is something that I see as just a touching philosophy without establishing a dialogue with philosophy. And what I am trying to do with my provocative essay is to encourage people to do more with philosophy, to play with philosophy. And when I say play, is this a kind of movement where you establish a dialogue, you create an area of discourse that makes some connection in action between what is your research and what some philosopher may have said on something similar. And of course, you consider all if you take a pragmatist philosopher like Shusterman, you consider all the pragmatism in a sense, but generally you take just a part, a fragment of what Shusterman or Dewey wrote, and you establish some work with these, like and the part and the fragments of your research. But I will say more on this. Don't get lost immediately. So what I decided to do is for this essay was not to propose an exhaustive or an analysis or some kind of well-constructed essay. I proposed something very much more provocative. I proposed something like the sardines and the anchovies. I proposed the selfies. Everybody, I guess, made some selfie and send around the selfie. And the selfie is something that is linked to the technology of our mobile phones, and is not something that is linked to photography. It's something that is based on photography, and I will go to tell you something more about photography, but is based on the technology of mobile phones. People through mobile phones love to send selfies. I don't love to do, but sometimes I do. I mean, to make some selfies to send around to familiars and great-grandchildren, and etc., etc. Selfies. Selfies are very much something that is quick. That is, but anyway, when you make a selfie, you make some performance, because it is anyway, in any case, a photograph. When you make a selfie, you look for the right posture that you can have, the background that you want to capture, and also the people that you want to have with you. So you make a lot of you perform your body corporeally in order to take this selfie. But selfie is not a photograph, a portrait. It's not studied like in a studio, a photographic atelier where you have the lighting, the right lighting, the professional equipment, and etc., etc. Now the selfie is very, very much the popular, unprofessional a quick photograph that has something very particular in respect to a photograph. You are included in the selfie. You are there. You are there with the gesture to make it. You are there because there is your hand. You are there because you are inside. You are the subject of the photo. You are there because you are is present. You're all implicitly present. Your hand, your arm, in order to take the selfie. This is the thing. So in this way, I was included with all my writings in this process. And the 3 selfies that I am exposing in the essay, in this article on organizational aesthetics, yes, organizational aesthetics, that you can find easily in the website of this journal, the selfies are taken from different posture, from different viewpoints. They show a plurality of viewpoints from where you are photographing yourself inside this process of new trend, new attention to philosophy. The first selfie is the nearest to my study, and is aesthetic philosophies and organizational aesthetics research. And so it's I am approaching from very, very near the doubt that I have about the importance of philosophy in our organizational research. The second self is taken from a more distant viewpoint, because it's considering if this two fields of knowledge, of knowing, are intersecting somewhere. No, their research, their field, their themes are intersecting theoretically and where, I mean, the two fields are, of course, the field of the philosophy and, if you like, also epistemology and social theory. And the other field is, of course, organizational studies. The third one is the self that says that these bodies of knowledge do not overlap. And I will tell you more in a moment about these 3 selfies. The first one, aesthetic philosophy and organizational aesthetics research, is a selfie that shows that a large part of the research and studies have made reference to philosophy in a predominant, mainly, occasionally, and in a ritualistic manner. That is references, there is short compendiums, there is, but I mean, nothing very engaging about philosophy. There is also a part of the research and studies in organizational aesthetics that do not cite philosopher or social theorist. to that side, Zimmel or Kant, or doesn't matter. There is in this field of study, anyway, 4 different research styles or study approach. That is the aesthetic approach, which is my aesthetic approach. The artistic approach, it is Pierre de Montour. This is the art, which is mainly present in the study. So it's the artist part that is considered important in order to understand how to manage organization and how to consider the flow, the experiential flow in studying organizational life. And also the empathic logic approach by Pasquale Gagliardi and the symbolic archaeological approach by Berg, Per-Olof Berg and Christian Kreiner in the beginning of the history of the organizational aesthetics research, because it comes from the organizational symbolism approach to the study of organizational life. In this area, in this approach, philosophy is nevertheless important, and it is particularly important in my aesthetic approach and in the artistic approach. If you go to see the books, they are full of philosophy. They are grounded in philosophy. They pass from a philosophy to another one, and they study through, they interrogate their data through philosophical thoughts. But this is, if you like, a part of the organizational aesthetic research. This gives you an idea. You would ask the philosopher. A few philosophers had some interest, showed some interest in the organizational aesthetics research. Very few. The intersecting theoretical paths, this selfie shows that research and study paths have intersected in some areas of organizational study, from the epistemological, now you remember the epistemological debate. Let me close the door because my neighbors arrived. They will make noise. The epistemological debate in the late 80s, the cultural term in organizational studies, the epistemological, and all the philosophical ones concerning the modern, postmodern perspective, the post-functionalism, the post-structuralism, the post-humanism, the post, etc., post-qualitative studies. Now we have philosophy, no? that comes and goes from there. And the philosophical sensibility have concerned philosophy in general, and we find this in this book, Mir and Hugh Wilmot and Greenwood book on the philosophy and social theory in organizational studies, as well in particular traditions such as phenomenology, process philosophy, pragmatism, and the specific areas of philosophical research such as aesthetics and ethics. So we have some intersecting theoretical paths that are there, that are interesting. On the other side, from the philosopher side, there is no interest at all that I found. Maybe you can help me on that, finding that I am wrong, but no interest at all about, they when the philosopher cite somebody who wrote about organizational life, they refer to Max Weber, which is important, no doubt, but they stop themselves there. I mean, we don't find nor Lodino or the Mojani or the Tsoukas or even Jim March or cited. They could refer to Simon, Herbert Simon, but he was not exactly an organizational scholar, according to some view. So intersecting theoretical parts. Bodies of knowledge that do not overlap. But this is the final selfie, which is looking from a very far from. So it's like in a different posture, a different position, trying to understand what is happening. And this self shows that the characterizing elements of these two bodies of knowledge hardly resemble each other. And they are not superimposable. If you think there is a classical, you see how far we are and how different is the position from where we are taking the selfie. The classical distinction that contrasts analytic philosophy with a continental philosophy. This is a distinction that does not characterize organizational studies. So we cannot say that we have the analytical organizational studies and the continental organizational studies, even though we say that we have the managerial organizational studies or the critical organizational studies, but they are not. This is not exactly the same kind of distinction. There is this distinction partially in the aesthetics research. Organizational aesthetics research, but is considered is a part of is absorbed, but is not something that comes from the field of organizational studies. It is the influence of philosophy on our aesthetic research rather than the way that from the organizational studies goes towards and generates this distinction. So there is no superimposition possible in this case. And the other classic distinction that contrasts organizational studies based on qualitative methodologies of social research with organizational studies based instead on quantitative research methods. This does not exist, simply does not exist in philosophy. They don't have these quantitative research methods as something that is an important field that characterizes. So no, it is a confident, is something similar. So this is these are the three selfies. Now these three selfies. This selfies takes us in what I want to show as my personal way to play with philosophy. What I mean when I say we play, let us play with philosophy. We do it. We play with philosophy, rather than just citing or referring to it. In my modest, humble way, I consider that we have the framing, the fragmentation, and the detail in the making of selfies. I made 3 selfies because I was not satisfied with the first one or the second one or the third one. I had the need of these three different selfies. So because I needed to understand more. I was not satisfied with one of them. Framing the three selfies, this is an important point, exclude all that surrounds the frame in Zimmelian terms, exclude Georg Simmel, the sociologist, all that surrounds, and they exercise a unifying integration with respect to the interior. They focus, no? They make the gaze glide inward, the self. By framing the three selfies, I collected fragments of organizational research and fragments of philosophical debates. I didn't collect full philosophical thoughts and full organizational theories. No, I collected fragments, pieces of here and there. And I create, in this way, fragments of a connection in action. I didn't create full and exhaustive explanations. No, I created fragments of connections in action between organizational studies and philosophy. This fragment is enclosed in each of the three photographic frames. Well translated, these fragments that were enclosed in each of the three photographic frames were translated in a new artifact. We have to consider this, which is a detail, is not a fragment anymore. Is a detail rather than fragment, since its configuration depended on my point of view, on my frame, on my framing. You see, this is the metamorphosis of the fragments, the fragmentation through the framing in a detail. And this detail is the selfie that I showed you before. So if we remain in the selfie, who is a photographic act, an act of photography, and we go to the philosophy of photography, we have that the act of photography, Flusser, Wilhelm Flusser is a Czech neo-phenomenologist, philosopher who died rather recently, and who wrote on the philosophy of photography these words that worked in my to understand my doubt, because we started from the doubt: is philosophy important in order to study organizational life? Are we sure of it? The act of photography is that of phenomenological doubt, the selfie, that where everybody tries to frame something, the doubt. It attempts to approach a phenomena from any number of viewpoints. The photographer's practice itself is hostile to ideology, that is to the insistence on a single viewpoint thought to be perfect. You see, that's what is very much understandable for me. Now this this way to approach from a philosophical point of view the act of photography, because this is the doubt that we have. And when I take a photograph, I am an art photographer. When I take a photograph, I'm never satisfied. I go to study the viewpoint, etc., etc. Now you don't need more on this. Photographers' practice is fixed to a program anyway. Photographers can only act within the program of the camera. And that's finally the phenomenological doubt expressed completely in its whole dimension. The photographer has the freedom to choose the framing, but this freedom is bounded, is limited, is negotiated, is conflicted, is with the program of the camera. And the Czech philosopher Flusser asserts this is true for all post-industrial acts. They are phenomenological in the sense of being hostile to ideology, and they are programmed acts. This assertion is somehow too much for me, because it's a totalizing assertion. I have a philosophical viewpoint that is linked and grounded in the weak thought, not the ground theories, but weak thought, very much grounded in what we are able to understand and study. So, but till the point the photographer practice is fixed to a program, and the photographers can act only within the program of camera, this is very much understandable in photography. And to make it understandable also for all of you is what he suggested to pose this question to ourselves from an aesthetic point of view, an aesthetic observation for what is happening in establishing new canons, new standard aesthetic canons of photographic aesthetics. And to what we are socializing through our virtual meetings like this one. These canons are making us familiar with the bizarre and deformed corporeality of ourselves. You remember yesterday, Jean-François Charlat, that Johann told him, well, please, don't make some lights on your face. I mean, it was in the dark and in the opposite position. The formed corporeality of ourselves and the colleagues we work with. We remember how they are, how they were. The COVID exaggerate all this. The aesthetic choices of the various framings end up offering us a pastiche of clippings of legless digital bodies. You can see now legless digital bodies that are framed in small rectangles on the screen of our computers. This is the new standard of aesthetics. We are becoming familiar. It's normal. We are improving this. Inside these framings, we see half-length bodies grappling with computers and mobile phones, faces deformed by the wide-angle shot of the computer camera, faces which appear in great evidence, large foreheads, swollen nostrils, puffy lips, faces in shadow darkened by the backlight or dimly lit. These are what we are becoming new aesthetics of photography and we are creating collectively this. So this means that our freedom is in this phenomenological doubt has been limited. And in what form does the participants in the organization, ourselves here, the photographic software programs that we have in our computers, the photographic hardware that is our computers system of taking the image, the digital platform when it works, the organizational environment, your room, which is now very much more convivial than the other room yesterday, and other subjects are intertwined in the experiential process that configures the aesthetic authorship of the new aesthetic canons of digital photography. So this is an enormous problem in understanding what we are producing in our society and what we are living about our society. And to go deeper inside the issue of the authorship, I put in this essay a photograph that is not a photograph. That is a photograph that is in my book on organizational theory and aesthetic philosophy that I published recently by Routledge. And this photograph is expressing, is framing, if you like, my aesthetic approach, because there are, you can see, there is a wallaby that smells my fingers. So there is the perceptual, no, the sensible knowledge. There is the issue of the aesthetic judgment. Clearly, she's not offended in her smelling by my smell. So there is an aesthetic judgment that is that make us to have a relationship, to have a moment of a relationship, and there is what I call the poetic performing of this image, because there is some art, some aesthetics, but we are there in a park in Brisbane, the Kangaroo Park. So the wallaby is used to see humans going around in the park. We have the ground, the grass, the trees, my hand, all these elements that are all around. And what is the important point also is that with the hand that we don't see, this is very different from the selfies. The selfies show my presence there. Here is not shown. It could be another hand, if you like. I am taking the framing, that's the point. I am framing the act of photography. I am framing, not seeing the image through the viewer of the photo camera, but with my right hand. In my right hand, the fish, the lady in the fish shop was having the anchovies, and I had my camera, and with my professional skill, I was able to position the camera and in a position the Leica that and the wide angle that small, the short wide angle that I had 35 millimeters in a position that was able to take, and I was there involved in the relationship, involved in the relationship. This was my attention. All my attention was in establishing a dialogue with the wallaby, and the other, my attention was in framing through my right hand that is not visible, and taking the right, the good shot, one would say. And then this photograph that was that is in the book, in the book 2019, published by Routledge. This photograph I reworked through software in order to give all this expression, because poetic performing, sensible knowledge, aesthetic judgment were written on the image in the book. Here I am satisfied with the fact that I worked through software this image in order to have Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Lightroom, in order to have these feelings there. And observes the French sociologist Edgar Morin, the explanation usually given by scholars to events of this type, the wallaby smelling my fingers, is that the animal wallaby, it's myself writing this, but he says about this explanation about the animals. And they say the animal wallaby sniffed the head of the human me, it's like if I am not an animal, in search of food. The animal is an animal that searches for food. The domination and the pervasiveness of rationalist and positivist thought generally seeks for the functionalist and the structuralist narrative that ends up stripping the animal world of its aesthetic dimension. Yet, instead, in the animal world of which we belong with our corporeality, in the animal world, we make ourselves beautiful, to attract, to seduce. Things at the flowers, to seduce the mosquitoes, or for the pollen, or similar poetic performances can be noticed in the plant world. This is what Edgar Morin, writing on the aesthetics after 30 years of reflection on the aesthetics in this small book, was asserting, and I found this appropriate to reflect on this framing of this shot, because he's just a photo poem, a photograph. Now, but who is the author of the photograph, poetic performing? Couldn't, if we continue with Edgar Morin, couldn't it be, in fact, that the wallaby just wanted to smell the fingers of my hand, that it was an act without a rational structuralist purpose, that is a disinterested aesthetic act in Kantian terms, done just for the pleasure of doing something beautiful, in and of itself, with this new doubt, no, that accompanies the other doubt about the importance of philosophy in our organizational studies. We can leave the sociologist Edgar Morin and the philosopher Immanuel Kant and the mystery of posthumanist post-humanist, ordinary aesthetics, because now we are really in the phenomenological and in the post-humanist ordinary aesthetics, to return to the issue of the aesthetic authorship of poetic performing, that is the photograph, with another new doubt. Are we sure that we can rule out Wallaby? That's all. And thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much. So let's try to switch to see a bit of everyone. I don't know if we should thank you or the Wallaby at this stage. Presentation. I do have a few questions, but we have opportunities to talk, so I want to open the floor to anyone online or in the room for questions. Or you want to jump in?
Obviously. Thank you very much, Antonio, for your presentation, and it's always really refreshing and really enlivening, because when you bring back aesthetics into your perspective, you're not only talking about it, you're actually manifesting it. And I think this dimensionality is actually one key to understand the whole subject. So if I understand your presentation correctly, basically you were saying that with the reduction of three-dimensional, multi-dimensional experience to only a two-dimensional frame, basically we adopt a reductionist paradigm, right? So with this paradigm, the idea is how to re-enrich it, re-enliven it, bring it back to life, even though it's in a different form. And that's how I understood your manipulation of the artifact, your, let's use a Derridian concept of deconstructionism of the artifact that is a selfie, to bring it back in there. And what's very interesting is your performance of the poetics of it, because basically by this special framing, that a certain organization of the fragments, you're trying to bring back or to invoke or evoke a certain multidimensional reality into a three-dimensional framework, whereas it's only in 2 dimensions. So yeah, what my really key takeaway from your presentation is how I can use poetics to supplement our reductionist, functionalist perspective. And I would say it's a good news, because we have a solution. My 2 cents.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I have to observe each specific situation in order to understand it. I don't have a general rule, but one point is very, very important. You know, we are now in a virtual dimension. We don't have for me, the importance is that we are aware of this virtuality, and we are aware at the same time of the fact that this virtuality is a connection that gives us the chance to speak and to connect from Italy, Trento to Oxford through this reductionism system, through this symbolic mediation, through this technological settled language. So this awareness gives us the chance to understand that, let me put it this way, we have legs, and maybe also shoes, and maybe also, you know, things that we cannot see, and we have a three-dimensional reality, a very much more complex reality. The other thing is that we give us the awareness that of the materiality of all this, the virtual of this connection is very material. Is like my photograph, the photograph that my hand made of the wallaby, together with the wallaby and my fingers. You know, these are the material involved in all the process. Is material the virtuality? Is material is the physical, if we can say the physical three-dimensional life. So this complex way to take, not to take in the same consideration these opposed views, the virtual and the physical, and to understand their materiality, give us the chance to observe ourselves in our organizational studies, in our research, to see ourselves inside there, to observe what is going there, and to observe also, to take into account all the symbolic mediations that are in there. I don't know if I answered to your question. It's a huge question, and I have this little small.
You did. My question would be maybe just a little more specific about how do you figure out for organizational life at large this poetic property of making from a reductionist ontology or visibility, because you are not just a torso, you have shoes and so forth. Does it emerge? How does it supplement? On what level? And could you articulate this with organizational knowledge at large? Yeah, that's a big question. I'm sorry.
I don't know if I understand your question. If I got it, I'm sorry. Not...
Now, my question is, basically, we are cutting off a part that's a reductionist, and through poetic, through framing, through all of this, we are making something emerging. And this emerging is actually supplementing. So what we take off on one side, we have another one instead. But so it's different realities, but it's supplemented or augmented realities in some form. So do you have to say anything about that?
My point in this case is what I was saying before. We are dealing with fragments. We're dealing with fragments. We are dealing with fragments because we find there. I find you find that this image of myself. I am finding this image of you. Is an image that is a movement, because it's a photograph after the other, but it's just a fragment that I found, and you found the fragment Antonio Strati, you know, in this view, in this setting, and we have to be aware that what we are constructing is starting from this fragment, but then it becomes not anymore a fragment, because we transform it in a detail, in an artifact. But we are still dealing with fragments. And if this is Antonio Strati is a piece of a fragment of philosophy, and your table is a fragment of organizational studies. You have the image of what I am saying when I say we are in connection. We create connections in action that are constituted by fragments that become a detail in our construction of a new understanding of an artifact. It is our new understanding of this relationship. Now we are dealing with this. We are not dealing with all the philosophy. We are not dealing with all the organizational studies. We are dealing with fragments, creating details, and constructing our philosophical and play. Because we can play with philosophy. We have the right to play with philosophy. As you just expressed, going through reductionism, going through the representation, going through what is left out and remains in the dark side.
Thank you.
I don't know. Again, if I answered, but this is what came to my mind.
But to speak to that, and interestingly, with this relationship between fragments and framing, to a certain extent, as much as we want to frame, something is always out of control, in the sense that when we frame, even using philosophy or something else, and then we send it, and then we have reviewers, and they always don't understand what we meant. Like the frame that we put that was nice and neat and understandable for us, all of a sudden is being challenged, and they're always disrupting my framing. And even right now, when you have lost your legs, and you cannot see our legs, but even in that reduction of who we are and how we present ourselves in organization, there's also a background. So I've lost the experience of the coordination of your outfits in this Zoom experience, but never in my entire life would I have dreamt to enter your house and see things on your walls and the background. So as much as we want to control the frame, maybe the best experience of controlling the frame was Jean-François yesterday, who basically first sat in front of a window and we couldn't see anything, not even his face. So, but what interests me is that even on Zoom, where we all choose where we put our computers and our cameras, I'm always fascinated in these Zoom meetings where you can see details in the background. You framed out the legs, but there's a dévoilement in the intimacy of some people. Interestingly, I see Cécile has blurred the background, so a bit of intimacy is preserved. But what I mean is that in the fragment that are framed and presented, and we can see Lidwin's office now. So, like, the framing always is a challenge of trying to control what we present as fragments, but also things that constantly escape and were out of control, no?
Yes, that's why I was reflecting on this image of the wallaby, because I didn't frame seeing through the viewfinder. I framed with the right hand, so I didn't see the image. I thought that I was taking the image. I positioned. I asked my right hand to behave correctly, but I didn't control. I mean, I didn't frame. It was my hand who framed. And it's true what it goes back to the fragments that I was saying. These fragments show something that you did not construct. They are there now. That you enter in my mountain chalet, if you like. It's a small apartment in the mountains with neighbors all around that are rather noisy. But now you enter and you can see something. Sure, if I had been with you there, I could have smelled your aftershave, for instance, or your partner.
Yes, I can smell it.
So
Yes, we all smell
I
it.
think that we cannot, no, we cannot in this case. And I could have touched somebody, at least your arm, and to hug him, because it's a long time that we didn't meet. This is something that we don't have, no, that is now in the fragment. If you think about this as metaphorically, you can understand, reflect, if you like. You can take it for reflecting on what are, when we say our research findings, our research materials, and we work with them. We are a bit in the same situation, no? We are bounded, we are limited, we are because there is, but and we take fragments. Now we start from some fragments and we transform them in some kind of details, and these details are there to, in order to show what are what is our understanding of the situation in that organizational everyday life.
One last, but is Ryan, you want to?
I mean, from somebody else, I would like to thank you very much, Strati, for your intervention. I would like to get back to a specific point that I feel is still very central, playing with philosophy. So your talk made me think about this matrix when you talk about playing and knowledge. So for pedagogical purposes, we play to teach. Okay, so it's a way of learning through playing. In research for academic purposes, we have to have a prior knowledge so we can play. So this builds a matrix, can also put as a continuum that are games that requires more or less prerequisite knowledge. So my question, and I would like to have a reaction on that, is when it comes to philosophy, we have the tendency of saying, well, we can play, we can mix, connect, and learn new things, and I fully agree with that. But at the same time, we also need to know things concretely so we can play with them. And where would you put the cursor on this continuum when you say let's play with philosophy?
Well, I put as I showed you before, when I introduced Flusser, the Czech philosopher, I introduced his philosophy, aesthetics of photography on something, on a fragment, if you like, on a detail, for maybe, that I experienced, for me, was understandable, was clear, was aesthetically true, if you like, even though to say that it is true is wrong in itself. But I mean, because I experienced the act of photography is looking for different framing of what we are there to frame. And at the same time, this freedom is negotiated with the potential of our that is not anymore an instrument, is not a tool, is another subject, is the computer algorithms, programs that the photographic camera has. So I am conflicting with all this. If I wanted to do something that is not foreseen from the programs, and I can take advantage of the programs that are there in order to, etc., etc. It's not anymore the tool that was before, where I was adjusting the setting of the camera according to the light that I was perceiving, or my guess of the lighting. But it is very, very, very much dealing with all the automatism that are there, all the setting. It works in this way, and my car works in this way. So it's something that is I am there, and so this all my freedom is a negotiation of what I would like to frame with all the I was saying the algorithms who are maybe too much criminalized nowadays. All the hardware, all the technology that I have around, all the materiality of this world, all the elements, the actors that are entering in this. So for me, it was true. It was something that it was expressed in a philosophical manner, and it was expressing something that I experienced, and which was a part of a philosophical thought that for me was understandable, because it's phenomenological, is neo-phenomenological. So it's something that I am in dialogue with, because of my phenomenological, my interest, philosophical interest in phenomenology, and the posthuman philosophy, posthumanist philosophy also, and other philosophies, because I don't have, I'm not just in dialogue with phenomenology. I am in dialogue in my aesthetic theorizing about aesthetic understanding of organizational life. I am in dialogue with Luigi Pareso, who was an existentialist, with Hans-Georg Gadamer, who was an hermeneutic. So Roland Barthes, who is a semiotics, Omar Calabrese, who is another semiotic. You see, without pretending to be in dialogue with all their philosophy, or to be part of, but starting from what I am studying, from what I am trying to understand. So trying to something that comes from the field, from what I want to understand, and goes in dialogue with. So it's a fragment of my studies that require my playing with philosophy. And this is something that I understand that we can do. I mean, we can take the courage to do. I mean, we are not becoming philosophers. It's not this is the point. We are playing with philosophy. We are just playing. But we have the right to play with a philosopher, even though we are not researchers in philosophy. It's a way to move away from just citing, making compendiums, or say that our theory is valid because it is postmodern, or has Derrida, or has somebody else, and I am a follower of, I don't, doesn't matter. No. It is Schiller is interesting in some points, Schopenhauer in others. No, we play, we must have this freedom because it comes from our framing, The framing is in discussion in all this, and the framing is not intentional. I mean, it's not under control. Is made also through my hand and not just my seeing or my understanding.
Well, on this playful note, but as we understand, all playing doesn't mean being necessarily on the surface, and we can take it seriously. I'm a bit mindful also with the time difference that we're approaching lunchtime in the rest of the continent. Antonio, thanks again for your thoughts and challenges and inspiration. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all of you.